Well, there was a little boy that was waiting for his mother to come out of the grocery store. And as he waited, he was approached by a man who asked him, "Son, can you tell me where the post office is?" So the little boy replied, "Sure, just go straight down the street through a couple of stop signs and then turn to your right." And the man thanked the boy kindly and said, "I'm the new pastor in town, and I'd like for you to come to church on Sunday. I'll show you how to get to heaven." And the little boy replied with a chuckle, "Oh, come on, you don't even know the way to the post office." So here we are in our second week of our March series of nonviolent communication, and we have a few copies of the book in the bookstore, and I highly recommend this book. I don't know if I shared this with you last week, but this was a week intensive when I was in ministerial school, and I think it is the class that I've used the most in ministry and in my life. Because, we're always communicating, aren't we? Whether it's nonviolently or not, nonverbally or not, we're always communicating. And so Marshall Rosenberg, it was so fun because last week as I was at the back door, a congregant came up and said, in 2006, I was on the Unity cruise, and Marshall Rosenberg was on the cruise, and I went to his breakout, and I said, well, I was there too. Yeah, Marshall Rosenberg was on the 2006 Unity cruise to Alaska, and we had a breakout session in the bar. It was very interesting. They kind of put us in strategic rooms, and I remember it was a very turbulent day on the ship, and people were like, But I'm so grateful that I have an experience of this man, Marshall Rosenberg. He made his transition. Was such a gentle soul. And he talked about nonviolent communication as an approach to how we listen that supports us from giving from our hearts. It allows us to speak and listen from a place of connection instead of disconnection. It allows the love and compassion that is our nature. Yes, compassion is our nature. Love is our nature. It allows that to flow and express. And when we are in conflict, it is a way for us to navigate those difficult conversations. Because what I know and what I'm affirming is that each of us, if we are in conflict with someone, that we go directly to them. We go directly to them with love in our heart as a way to mend that bridge or that fence, be that bridge from heart to heart. And so, because this is all about our inherent compassion, expressing, it's not something that we have to learn, it's something that we simply get to allow. So, Marshall Rosenberg teaches that a major block to us expressing our compassion when we communicate is something that he called life-alienating communication. Life-alienating, actually called it conversation. That perpetuates violence toward each other. And he kind of encapsulated this life-alienating communication into 4 Ds. And I'd love to share those with you this morning. So they're the 4 Ds of disconnection that make up life-alienating communication. And the first one is diagnosis, which includes judgment, criticism, and comparison. A diagnosis is something that we decide the nature of. We decide the nature of something when we diagnose it, right? So an example that he gave was moralistic judgments, making someone wrong or bad because they don't act in harmony with what we think is important. People making moralistic judgments often look outside of themselves for validation. And right now, everybody's shaking their head. I'm on Facebook. I'm on social media. I know. And it's one way that people can use the Bible these days to be right. There are other teachings. Another outpicturing of moralistic judgments is gossip. When we go to the parking lot and we triangle, we talk to another person about a grievance we have with another person that we're not including in order to be validated. Sometimes we just think, well, I'm just processing. Another way to say that is for gossiping. And it's very hurtful. So, when we judge and criticize other people, what we're really expressing are our own values and needs. Right? Okay. So if someone doesn't do what we think they should be doing when they should be doing it, we say they're wrong. He's wrong. Yeah, or he's just inappropriate or ignorant, and it includes blame, of course, and criticism and judgment. So that's diagnosis. The second is denial of responsibility. Nothing and no one can make us feel a certain way. Have we ever said, you make me feel, or that makes me feel, and you fill in the blank? Because what we're doing is we're denying responsibility for our own experience. We're denying that we're responsible for our actions, for our words, for our thoughts, for our feelings. And that's when I love to go to the unity, okay, when we say, I have to go to work, or I have to get on the Beltway right now during rush hour. I get to. And I remember that's one of the things I learned really early on in unity, and that I would work with coaching clients with when they'd say, I have to. So what's underneath that have to? And what if we could just shift it? It just sounds like a semantic thing, but what if we shifted it to, I get on the Beltway and meet all my new friends. I get to go to work. I get to have that difficult conversation with my coworker today. Yes. But we laugh, but you feel the shift in energy? From have to get to. The third is demand. When we sometimes disguise a request as a demand. Or we disguise actually a demand as a request. I should say it that way. When a demand is made, there is no room for what is being asked for to not occur without punishment or blame. So an example that Marshall Rosenberg gave that I loved was parents. Parents sometimes make demands because they feel that's what they must or should do to support their child to comply and do the right thing. Right, parents? Have you ever tried to really make your child do something they didn't want to do? How'd that work for you? Yeah. Marshall Rosenberg said he thought his job as a parent was to make demands so that his kids would change and behave. And he realized that all he could do when trying to make his kids do what he wanted them to do was make them wish they had through punishment. And he said when he tried that strategy that his kids had ways of making him wish he hadn't. How humbling he said that was. And lastly, the fourth is deserve-oriented language. When we speak and imply that certain actions deserve to be rewarded or that warrant punishment. Do you ever hear yourself saying, he deserves to go to jail? She deserves to be punished. So punishment in this instance is supposed to serve the purpose of making someone remorseful for their actions, but usually it makes them resentful, and it's usually not long-term. So when someone is threatened with punishment, that's fear. Because the thing is, people make changes because they want to make changes, right? We make changes because we see a value of making that change. That's when it's lasting, not because we're forced. So, okay. So life alienating communication alienates us from each other. It creates a space of separation. It cuts us off, and it's violent. And we're really about a choice in this. And this is what nonviolent communication has us get, that we're responsible for how we react, feel, act, and communicate. And see, that's the beauty of present moment awareness. Because the thing is, I know that I go into knee jerk sometimes. Can anyone else relate? We get upset. And if I'm not in my mindful space, if I'm not centered, if I'm not in the present moment, oh boy. And so the value of this practice today, and boy, let me tell you, I love the Calm app. If you haven't gotten the Calm app, it's awesome. But it's just a meditation app. There's a few of them out there that help me get centered every day. Because all of us are in the busyness of life, and sometimes it can be a little bit more challenging for us to be present and to be loving in our communication. So, okay. So last week we talked about nonviolent communication having 4 components. And we're going to cover all these so you don't have to remember them all. But the first one is observation without interpretation, stating how I feel, stating what I need, and then making a request. Observation without interpretation, stating how I feel, stating what I need, and then making a request. And I'm telling you, folks, when you learn this technique, you can run through these 4 things just in seconds when you're having a conversation. So let's talk about the first one. Observation without interpretation, which means we learn to observe what's happening without putting our spin on it. You remember Dragnet? The facts, ma'am, just the facts. I love that. The facts. What are the facts? Because, we can, how a police officer will come to the scene of an accident and interview about 4 different people and get about 4 different takes, right? So what that's about is, what are the facts? Expressing what you see without our judgments or without generalizations, and without using words like, he always, she never, No one always or never. Right. This is ridiculous. You see, these are things that don't communicate. They're judgments. So the point of declaring, okay, I'm going to state the facts here, gets us present, gets us in the moment, and has us be honest with ourselves about, okay, I'm noticing I want to talk about this with all my judgments around it, all my assumptions. And this is a call for us to just say, okay, when you did this, so what it takes from us to receive someone's observations is to be in the present moment and to really listen. Over the last couple weeks, we've had 7 new prayer chaplains in our prayer chaplain training. So excited. Yes, and they are amazing people. And so one of the things that we're learning is the importance of listening and being in the present moment. Because the responsibilities of a prayer chaplain are to hold sacred space, listen, and pray. Hold sacred space, listen, and pray. So how do we hold sacred space if we're not in the present moment? Right? If we're not completely with you in the moment. If that prayer chaplain is sitting across from you and you're sharing what's on your heart, what is theirs to do is to not get entangled with their interpretations or how they feel like they might get triggered. They're there to hold that sacred space in the present moment with you, and they're there to listen and then hold knowing with you. And so that listening piece, so we've got present moment awareness, I can't express enough how important it is just to be present with each other, folks, and when we communicate. And to listen generously, like no one else is in the room. And I found this poem that I just love, and it's called When Someone Deeply Listens to You, and it's by a man named John Fox. And he says this: when someone deeply listens to you, it's like holding out a dented cup you've had since childhood and watching it fill up with cold, fresh water. When it balances on top of the brim, you are understood. When it overflows and touches your skin, you are loved. When someone deeply listens to you, the room where you stay starts a new life, and the place where you wrote your first poem begins to glow in your mind's eye. It is as if gold has been discovered. When someone deeply listens to you, your bare feet are on the earth, and a beloved land that seemed distant is now at home within you. Listening to each other with an open, compassionate heart. And when you think back to when someone has really listened to you, deeply listened to you, how did that feel for you? It's such a beautiful, compassionate, loving act. Hafiz, the great Sufi poet and mystic, said it this way: how do I listen to others? As if everyone were my master, speaking to me his cherished last words. And folks, it's not always easy to do this, especially when we're triggered. You know, when someone says something hurtful to us, or we hear a hurtful news story. But what Marshall Rosenberg is trying to teach us is how we can navigate life nonviolently. And this is also how we communicate with ourselves. So, this is about us sharing our beautiful, compassionate hearts and being as present in the moment as we possibly can, so that we can make conscious choices to be nonviolent with each other. So this week, I just invite you to witness yourself and notice where you might get triggered a little bit, and see if you can navigate that experience with what the facts are versus the interpretations you're giving it. Because I tell you, the place of drama is always in the interpretation land. If we can discern facts from our interpretations of facts, we can act responsibly. We can choose to be compassionate. We can give from our hearts. We can listen and be present. So are you with me this week? Let's try this on, okay? This is a grand experiment. So this week, we're going to listen to the news, or well, if we choose to. Or we're going to go to work, we're going to do what we do in our life, and we're going to start noticing. We're going to be in the present moment, noticing our experience. Notice the stories people tell you, and see if you can pull the facts out. But first, just notice yourself, and notice if you get hooked. It's okay. You can make another choice, and another choice. Because this is the way that we give from our heart and express compassionately. Let's affirm together. I give love as I communicate from compassion. Bless you.